Good evening to all of you guys who are out there, whoever's going to end up watching this. I am Steve, and some of you might know me as Floral, the green puppet guy. And this is Will, which I'm actually going to do this because it makes more sense the way the cameras go, and we're going to make you more important because people who speak English read from left to right. So you are seen as the more important one, Will. So anyway, everyone, this is Will. We got various folks, as you can see in the chat there. We got David and Amber, and maybe it's just those guys talking so far. I thought I saw someone else.
Okay, so I was on private chat. That's why I see.
There you go.
What are you talking about? But
Yeah,
no,
we got real people.
I'm good.
And so if you guys could share this out here. Oh, and we got Paul. Hi, Paul, and happy Father's Day to you. So today, my Father's Day basically started off with me waking up at 6 a.m. because I heard a loud thud and then my dog bark. And I step out of my bedroom, and my wife was out of town last night. And so it's just me with the kids. And I look inside my son's room, and he's just got like 15 books on his bed, and he's just reading at 6 a.m. And I was like, okay. And then my daughter opens up her door, and she's just like, can I wake up now? I was like, no, go back to bed. Because I wanted to sleep another 30 minutes. And then had church, and then went for lunch with people unexpectedly, which was fun. But then we were all tired. How was your Father's Day, Will?
I am way behind on these comments. Holy smokes! There's a lot. It was okay. I never knew my dad, so I think even to this day, I kind of don't like him. I don't like Father's Day.
Okay.
I go to church and I see them, thanking their dad, and yeah, whatever. So I mean, I went. I was the head usher. So I was happy. I greeted them all, handed out chocolate chip cookies. Sorry, and then we always do a big thing at my uncle's house. He's like a father figure to me. We have a really good relationship. So every Father's Day we have a big lasagna. And then this Father's Day was a great day. So we were out by the pool.
Mhm.
Cousins were over, other aunts and uncles. So it was a big meal. We had like 6 different cakes, cookies. I'm very full, and it's a good day. I mean, I'm not woe is me, but there's always a tinge of ugh on Father's Day. But I am lucky and blessed that I do have 2 great uncles, which I enjoy, and I'm happy that I get to celebrate them on this day.
Awesome. Now, just so everyone can kind of, we listened to your story a little bit
Okay.
last week. So we listened to that sermon that you preached at your church about.
I probably just glossed. Like I think I told my story in like the first 2 minutes. So
No, actually, it was at the
by
end.
no means was it extensive.
You shared a little bit about your bowel stuff, but then
Yeah.
at the very end is when you shared like your accidents and all that kind of stuff. So we have like two, like your
Yeah.
that issue, but there's obviously more, and we just learned about your dad and growing up
Yeah.
a little bit there. So why don't you take a few minutes, as long as you want to talk, it's your call, and you can just share your story. You could start from when you were born. You could start even giving a little bit of details before you were born. That's allowed too, to give context. And so, go ahead, share what you feel
Sure.
is
Well,
pertinent and helpful.
back on January 3rd, 1986. No, I'm just kidding. That is the day I was born, though. No, I'm told this information. I obviously don't remember the actual events of being born, but I was told I was born dead. That I had died in the womb. And I've heard differing tales, but I'll say the most general statement. Something happened in utero, I think it's called, well, in the womb, where my stomach burst open and my intestines ended up coming out of my stomach. So when I was born, I was like, "This is not good. We must do surgery." Um, and they quickly discovered that my bowel was, I guess the medical term is gangrene, rotten. It's no good. Um, so they had to remove like 90%. Like I'm told, I was left with like the tip of your pinky left. I think of your small bowel. So I was in the hospital first 2 years, living off. They put a central line in my chest, which is essentially an IV tube in the main one of the main arteries in your heart or main vein, so that all of the and they would give me vitamins, fats, lipids, vitamins that would go to the heart and then get spread through the bloodstream. Because I couldn't eat food. That's the big problem. If I ate anything, it would just go right through me. I didn't have the bowel to digest food. So that was me the first 2 years in the hospital on that machine. Um, Someone who I do not know but would love to meet one day anonymously donated, must have been like $25,000, which in like 1986 would be like a lot more today. Anonymously donated that money in order for excuse me, in order for me to take those machines which fed me the nutrients and bring them home. So he bought them for me. So we got those home, and then at home I would be fed at night, like from 9 p.m. till 6 a.m. on these machines, and live somewhat of a regular life. I still had what was called the central line, so that IV tube stuck out of my chest a little bit.
Mhm.
It couldn't get wet. It couldn't get damaged. So I went to school, but I was very cautious, or at least people had to be cautious around me. I couldn't play in many physical sports, if any. It couldn't get wet, but I did my best. I mean, as far as I know, I had a somewhat okay childhood. I didn't notice anything was different.
Yeah.
Like when you're that young, you don't know how you're different. Other than I didn't play a lot of sports. At age 9, going back, people born with short gut syndrome, again, we were told, have an average lifetime span of about 10 years. That's at least when you're born with it, that's your lifespan. So at age 9, I was going back into the hospital because the central line had gotten infected and it needed to be put somewhere else. And by that time, I was running out of veins to use because they'd used them all. So I remember getting the phone call or hearing my mom get the phone call from the doctor. And I remember having this thought like, okay, I'm going into the hospital to die. Like that's where I'll live the rest of my life, however long that is. So we went there with that kind of mindset. My mom had them do some tests, or they did tests, and she asked the question. She's like, "Can I just take him home for 2 weeks without a central line?" Which is like, I think, suicide. But I grew up in a very Pentecostal church background. I think people had said to her, you could say prophesied, he's going to be healed. And I guess that she trusted that. That grew her faith. So she asked the doctors, can I take him home for 2 weeks? And they somehow agreed. So I came back 2 weeks later. They did a bunch of tests, blood tests, tests on my kidneys, liver, stuff like that. They did the tests again, and they're like, we can't explain this, but he's perfectly fine.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is, because the solution that they're giving me, which one provides all the vitamins, all the minerals, all the nutrients, the catch-22 is it also destroys your liver. So the fact that my liver was perfectly intact, they're like, we don't understand how this is. How I think I'm actually in like the children's medical record history books here in London, and I think like the phrasing they had to use was like, it must be an act of God, or this cannot be explained. some doctor way of saying, I don't want to give God credit, but we didn't do this. So the way they phrase it, I'm not sure. So I went home, honestly, with a new lease on life.
Mhm.
I was able to shower, go to the beach, learn how to swim, play sports, and I went home with this narrative in the back of my head of, you're like, you're gonna be amazing. Like, God saved you for a purpose. Like, you're gonna do great things. Like, step aside, Billy Graham. Here comes Will White. Um, and maybe not that bull, but that kind of idea of, wow, God, you're awesome. This is phenomenal. I'm gonna do great things. That was at age 9. So at age 11, my stepdad, because I never knew my father. He was a drug addict, a drug dealer, cocaine addict, alcoholic, probably responsible for some of my malfunctions. Who knows? I blame him anyways. But he's dead now. I don't care. So at 11, my stepdad picked me up from, I think, a friend's house. He just said, yeah, mom's sick. I'm like, oh, she have like the flu? We're gonna go to Shoppers and get some Buckley, that or whatever. He's like, it's not that kind of sickness. So for the next 5 years, 11 till 16, she was in and out of mental institutions, all over Ontario. I never really saw her. So those are pretty formative years to not have your mom around, who literally was my entire life the first 10 years. Like, without a father in the home, she had gotten married to my stepdad when I was about 7 years old. So she was my entire life. He was not a nice man. He provided, yes. But me and my mom were treated like, I pay the bills and you will just live here. I don't need to know you. I don't need to care about you, especially me. I don't need to talk to you. So to have mom gone and me stuck with him for 5 years was not fun. And then at around age like 12, within a year, he gave me the choice of, well, do you want to go to church? Well, I was like, no. Why would I want to go to a church to sing to this God who did a great healing thing and then took my mom away? Like, sorry, I just don't give a crap. So I stopped going. Next, I'd say 4 years, I just woke up. Again, his job, he was out of the house at 5 and home at 3. So I never saw him. I got up, had cereal, went to school, came home, watched hockey. That was my life for a number of years. At age 15, no, I'd say about 16, my mom had come back in the home on a lot of medication. I say this in a loving way, but in my mind, my mom died when I was 11. She's still alive. She's 70 years old. She's not the same person. So she was home and, getting to know mom again, but she's never the same. But I started going back to church around age 16 because of Grace. Not God's Grace, a girl called Grace. Like, who was this like gorgeous little Italian girl, so cute. Never talked to me, but that's all right. But that's just, I think, God's sense of humor. I'm gonna go back for you, and I'm never gonna get to talk to you, but whatever. So I went to the altar. I don't remember the pastor's sermon. I have no idea, but I remember going to the front. At that time, I was, I think, like grade 9, grade 10. No, I would have been grade 10, grade 11. And I was thinking, well, what am I going to do for a job? I'm going to apply to police college. I'm like, Will, you had big dreams, buddy. You were like 5 foot, like 6 and like 100 pounds, soaking wet, holding a brick. You're not going to be a cop. Like, it's not going to happen. Please, no. Okay. Like, I would have no response. But anyways, I went to church. I knelt down at the altar, and I would say I felt, again, so when I say I felt God speaks to me, it's not this deep voice, oh, we'll do this. It's almost like I'm talking to myself, but I'm like, I didn't say that. So where's that coming from? So I felt, I would say, the Spirit say, I saved you for a reason, right? And then next, I'd say 3 years, I slowly got more involved in the youth group. Started reading my Bible more. Became like one of the main leaders in the group, and then I started to wonder, well, does that mean like I'm gonna be like a pastor, and what does that look like, and blah blah blah. I don't know how to do this kind of thing. So I applied for Bible college because, again, as a naive 17, 18-year-old, I thought the natural stepping stone process was youth pastor, then assistant, then senior. That's just how you learn the ropes. That's how the game's played. So I applied for a youth pastor or the youth program. I did 1 year. I did 1 year at Masters when it was in Toronto, and I hated it because it was online. So they would mail you all these books.
Yeah.
I have no idea the content that I'm trying to read. I don't speak Greek. I don't know what soteriology means. Am I even saying it right? I just don't know. And then the assignments weren't very good. They weren't really, I wasn't learning anything. So I thought, well, this kind of sucks. And then a friend said, oh, you should check out Summit. And I'm like, well, I live most of my life sick and at home. I don't know if I can travel across Canada, but I did, and I loved it. Summit was amazing.
And that's where we met.
Yeah. My first year, I was in the youth program. Within, I think, by the end of the first semester, Dave Demchuk, so the president, read one of my papers and said, "You're in the wrong program." I'm like, "Oh, did I make a mistake?" He's like, "No." He's like, "You clearly have a knack for this. You like it. You write well. You should go into the biblical theology program." And then I even had students tell me this. Remember Enoch? Even Enoch said, "Buddy, you got to come into our program." So I went into that program and I loved it. I thrived for the 4 years there. That's when I first even heard what a master's degree was. I didn't know what it was. And Dave had told me, yeah, you can make a career out of this. I'm like, really? This is interesting. So I began to pursue that. I graduated. At that time, my parents had gotten divorced. I think they'd gotten divorced before, just as I was going to Bible college. So I decided to come back to Ontario. I lived with my mom to help support her, and then go to school at McMaster Divinity College in Hamilton. And by this time, in my mind, I'm like, okay, God, maybe you saved me to be a professor. Like, that's a cool gig. I seem to be good at it. I like, wearing jackets with elbow patches. This is gonna work. I'm gonna like this. So that's kind of where my mind began to go. So again, I come home with the fullest intention of getting my master's degree, then my PhD, and then being WP White and writing books. And that's my goal. I'm gonna write commentaries, blah blah blah. So I come home, I take a year off, get a job at Starbucks just to save up some money, whatever. And then I remember I missed a big part. Hold on. We're going to have to come back just 1 second. When I was 16, so I'd been healed at 9, 16, started going back to church. I had started to sleep a lot, like 15, 16, 17 hours a day. I developed this thing where I couldn't see at night. Like, I couldn't see the hand in front of my face. So my mom took me to one of my doctors that had as a kid, and he said, okay, well, this is simple. You grew back part of your bowel, but not enough of a bowel to actually sustain all the nutrients from food. So you just need to take these supplements to help the fact of not digest them. All right, fine. So I did that for a week. I was totally back to normal. We're all good. And I didn't really think of how that mattered much. So if something happens, I come home. I'm applying for school. Life's great. I'm taking a year off, and I'm going to a friend's house to watch a hockey game. And I get downstairs and I'm running to the car, and I just fall down, like my legs just stop working. I'm like, did I hit a stone? Did I trip? I get up. I try it again. I start to run. I fall down again. I had noticed this a bit the last year of Summit, but I thought it was because I wasn't stretching before hockey games. I didn't think it was actually
Yeah.
something that was bad. Just okay, whatever. So the fact that when that happened, I'm like, okay, I need to see someone. So I went and saw another doctor, and he did again various tests, and he discovered, oh, you have severe osteoporosis. I'm like, I'm 26. What the heck? I'm like, well, what's severe? He's like, well, people your age, their bone density is normally 0 to 1. Yours is negative 3.6. He's like, if you fall, you're gonna shatter your hip. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I was mad. And then I realized that was because at 16, when the vitamins were recommended, he never told me to take vitamin D. So I had taken calcium for years, and I just wasn't getting any of it. So that bugged me. That was I was 26 again, but again, the whole time I'm like, okay, God, you sent me for a purpose. I can overcome this. I'm still mad. The anger internally is kind of building, and the frustration and doubt. But I'm just like, no, I'm gonna keep going. You know, let's keep going here. So I did my first year of school. I did well. I liked it. I was on track to finish my master's in 2 years, which is a fast-paced record. Start my PhD, kind of go from there. The summer 2013, first year master's done. I'm in a motorcycle accident where I shatter my right foot, like 17 broken bones. I almost lose my right leg. It's cut off and hanging by the bone. Like everything's cut. I damage my cerebellum, which affects your balance even worse. So that's bad and all. But what makes it harder for me is with the malnutrition from shortcut syndrome. I'm simply not getting the proper amount of nutrients to recover. Um, so I'm it's taking me 2 years. I'm in rehab. My balance will never be the same. I will never, to this day, I can't walk and hold a cup of coffee. It doesn't work. I was going somewhere with this. Oh yeah, I started to begin to go to the hospital every Friday for 2 hours of IV vitamins. I didn't want a central line again, so they said just come in and we'll just put it in your arm and then we'll take the needle out and you can go home. You don't need a central line they're called something else now, but you don't need a permanent IV line in your body. I'm like, good. So I did that for like 3 years. Just as the lawsuit's coming to an end, and I can kind of move on and start hopefully my PhD, I'm in another accident where my back is broken. I'm driving to school, transport truck hits my car, and the L1 T12 vertebrae in my back are broken. So I think I've actually lost a little bit of height, but I'm not tall enough, so who cares? But again, what makes it harder is I'm on my back. I'm not moving, so the osteoporosis gets worse.
Mhm.
Now it's even though I'm taking vitamin D, being immobile for like a good 3.5, 4 years now, or at least not mobile enough. I'm not walking very much. Just makes it harder for your bones to grow. So after 5 years of learning to walk again, of this stuff, I still have back pain. I still have leg pain, shortcut syndrome. So I was born with it. I'm 38 now. I have, I would say, extreme fatigue sometimes. I just can't think. I don't have the energy give me all the coffee you want. It's not gonna do anything. I finished my first master's, did my second master's, intended to go back and do the PhD, and there's a whole nother story to that, but I just stopped. And now I'm honestly still, I think, questioning, why did you save me again? Like, I don't understand where this path is going. I think I told you this once before. Another time, I believe God spoke to me again, not an audible voice, my own mind kind of thing. It's God said, I'm glad you got all your master's degrees, Wills. I'm really proud of you. I don't care. I want to use your suffering to speak to people. And I was like, no, that's the part of me I'm ashamed of. I would rather be Dr. Will or Will MTS MA ABCD whatever. I would rather put on that game face. I don't want to do this. Like, I've gotten some nice messages from people at church about the sermon, and that's great. You feel good, but part of me is like, yeah, I don't think for a second I enjoyed that. I would in a heartbeat say, give this life to someone else and I'll take theirs. Any day of the week. This is not something I enjoy to this day. It's not something I want. It's not like wake up, praise God, my body sucks. No. Just this morning, I'm sitting in like a recliner I have in my living room. Just this morning, I do this every morning. I'll make espresso or whatever, or coffee. And I walked here to sit down and I tripped and spilled it all over the market lounger. I was not praising God. It's like, are you freaking serious? This is what I have to deal with? So yeah, it's not easy. I try my best. I still have questions. I still have doubts. But I guess in the end, this is the body I'm stuck with. So, I mean, people have said before, can I pray for your healing? And whether it's me just being in a bad mood or me trying to honestly answer, I'm like, no. Because I don't know if I would ask God to heal me. I would ask God to help me persevere. Help me to find you in this. I think the healing is too easy. I'm not saying I don't believe God can do it. I totally believe he can.
Yeah.
But I am more saying, help me find you in this. Because I do believe, I had a friend ask me, a newer Christian, which I love because their questions are, I'm like, wow, that's awesome. He just said, what do you think one of the biggest challenges for Christianity? I said, suffering. And how we deal with it. And why we're so eager to pray it away instead of persevere and learn from it. But that's a comment I have to make to myself every day.
No, that's fair. And today, I was preaching on Exodus 14, which is the crossing of the sea. And one of the things that I wanted to really spend some time talking about is the fact that the miracle, like, could you imagine seeing the water on the left and on the right, the enemy pursuing you, but God literally stopping them, and just utterly defeating Pharaoh and his armies. And then a month later, you're at the mountain and all of that gold that you got from Egypt.
Yeah.
All of the people, they're like, we should make God look like a cow. And they make an idol. Right? The miracles, they don't sustain us.
No.
Right? And that's where oftentimes I think when we hear these stories, we're like, well, God, why don't you show up? Why don't you do stuff? And it's because honestly, all the pattern throughout Scripture is, and as we've seen through people's lives, is the miracles won't sustain you. It's about the person that does.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. My challenge is, no one realizes this. I think even myself at times, but when you are on your knees asking, God, where are you? God, why is this happening? I think in that moment, you're more like Christ than you've ever been. The problem is our response going to be, but your will be done?
Mm.
Because for me, that's not my go-to response. It's, why is this happening? Please make this stop.
Yeah.
But being in that garden, we all want to be like Jesus, healing the lepers. Everyone loves the whole, we're going to have more signs and wonders because he's gone, blah, blah, blah. That's great. Everyone wants that. No one wants to be Jesus in the garden. No one.
Mm-hmm.
And because they think, oh, I must be cursed or God hates me. And again, I'm of the opinion, and people will probably say, well, this based on your experience. And yeah, I'm of the opinion Christians who somehow learn to suffer well and honestly are more effective witnesses.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the witness of the church. Is there are too many. Again, I go to a church that its mission or its focus is mainly to the unchurched or those new to church. So I will run life groups sometimes. My life groups are geared towards the Christians who want to go deeper. But Sunday mornings are geared towards the newer Christian, right? So it's not that deep. But you have Christians come to church, and if all they see is the happy, happy, smile, smile, God's gonna prosper you, and that's fine. There's truth in that, but that's also very fake because all those people have private pain. They're just scared to voice it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when a new believer experiences that, who do they go to? They probably don't know who to go to. The overwhelming response I got from my message, which was just interesting, was how many people kind of came up to me after saying, I've been mad at God for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know if or how I said this. And I'm like, how many Christians have been living this disconnected life because they're inwardly mad and they didn't know they could talk about it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that stunts growth.
Absolutely. And I think you're gonna love this comment. Are you ready?
How come I'm not seeing it? Or am I? Hold on.
So if you on the right side of your screen, you'll see comments.
Hold on. Do I scroll down to the bottom?
Yeah, you can. Well, there's.
Oh, I'm at the very top. Oh man, I'm missing all these comments.
So,
Oh, brilliant.
it's okay. You're a rookie. We're gonna teach you the ropes.
Yeah, heck
You're
yeah.
good. You're good.
Oh,
So John says he's so chill about everything.
yeah.
he hasn't
You
been in the
must
office.
see me and him talk on our own though. I can be quite not chill.
That's why it's such a funny comment. I loved it. That's why I started. And then there is a question about Job, but we'll get there in a second. The change from fix everything to help me change to handle it better prayer makes a lot of difference. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Not. Let me think. Well, I just to say that I think in popular Christianity, a lot of churches that we just so want healing that it amazes me how if your mindset, I find, going into reading the Bible, if you're going into reading it with all this already formed thoughts of God heals and my health and wealth and all this, that is going to go into how you read it. Yet Paul is I would say is a cruciform apostle. Paul's all about the crucified Messiah, identifying with his suffering. And it's easy how we don't read those the same when our ideas are already set on healing, prosperity, and it's not our fault. It's what honestly I think it's what churches know what sells, what gets butts in the seats.
Yeah.
But I just don't think it does a lot of healing for people.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think, again, now to be fair, I'm not trying to go to this like masochistic suffering all the time, no joy,
Beat
depression.
yourself with lashes.
Yeah, you can go both ways. I think there is a middle. But I think both can, like, I think I can learn from people who are a bit more positive than I am. I am, and I would say rightfully so, pessimistic. But it doesn't mean that I'm right in everything. I can still learn from kind of their optimism, and they can learn from maybe my hesitancy to be so optimistic 24/7. But I'm not saying it's one way or the other. But I am saying the God Paul encountered, the God Paul preaches is the crucified Messiah. He will say in 1 Corinthians, you Jews, you want the signs. You want the signs you're used to in the book of Exodus. You want the plagues. You want God to do these big things. You Greeks, you want the wisdom, the wisdom of word. And in Corinth, you'd have all these sayings, spray painted on walls. I don't know if they use spray paint, whatever. Choose your friends wisely and all these cool things. You want wisdom, you want signs, and I give you a crucified God who is the power, is the sign of God, and is the wisdom of God. So it's a total reversal in a culture where a crucified God is the epitome of shame. And no one wants that ever. And Paul's like, no, this is how God is going to rule. Like, the fact God was crucified, that is his biggest demonstration of power. But no one likes to say that. His biggest demonstration of power is the healings. No, it's the crucifixion. That's where God, as Paul would say, that's where he conquers the powers and principalities. In that. Not minimizing the mighty deeds of healing, but the fact that God's greatest work of salvation is through suffering, not in the midst of suffering, not working around suffering. Not, oh shoot, I gotta do this. No, it's through suffering. Salvation comes. That's still a concept I haven't been able to fully wrap my head around, even lean into at times. I'm like, this just sucks. I don't want this. I've said this before. I don't want this. I don't like it.
Yeah.
It has brought me to my knees the most, not in always prayers of praise, but anguish, heart wrenching. Why do you hate me? What did I do to deserve this prayers? And yeah, it's a journey. It's 100% a journey. Learning to handle it better is 100% a journey. I wish I had one-word answers to these questions, and I wish I had them for myself. I mean, I can recommend books that I've read that haven't helped, but you get some cool quotes from them. But yeah, but I've always been drawn to stories. Like, one of my guilty pleasures is celebrity memoirs. But I only want to read a celebrity memoir where I've known you've suffered. I love Michael J. Fox's, who in his first one says Parkinson's was the greatest gift he ever received. I know. I've read Shania Twain's. And the only reason I wanted to read it is I hope she would address the fact her marriage fell apart because her husband cheated on her. And how do you deal with that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently reading Michael Richards, the guy who played Kramer on Seinfeld,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that his career fell apart after a not good situation on his part, but I want to see how he handled that, how he worked through it. And all of these are stories.
Mm-hmm.
They're very, very rarely. And so I read this quote and my life changed. It's walking. It's learning to sit in silence, to get no answers, to try to fail, to try again. And the frustrating thing is you don't often realize change until you look back over 5 years. You're like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
I see that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Question for you. So, because your favorite book is Isaiah, so by his stripes we are healed. This is my question based off of what you're saying.
yeah.
We both know how that verse is used in the charismatic circles.
Yeah.
Could you expand on that and give me your 3-minute thought on by his stripes we are healed?
Well, I think it was Peter quotes it. I have no problem with people taking it both. Growing up in a Pentecostal tradition, and that's not the only factor. I do believe God heals people.
Mhm.
I do believe healing is available. I also don't believe God heals everybody. And this obsession with being healed, I'm like, you're all going to die one day. That's the only guarantee the Bible really gives. So why you want to be healed and never die, I don't get. But I also think a wider meaning is by his stripes we are healed. I want to look that word healed in Hebrew. I want to talk to it.
No, do it. You can take a minute. I'll
What's the exact verse?
I just remember the line because I've heard so many guys abuse it. His stripes we are healed. Isaiah, I think it's 50 something. Isaiah 53.
Oh yeah, dumb. Wow.
Like 53 verse 3.
Gotta be near the end, like 11 or 12 or something.
No, it's verse 3.
Oh. He was despised, rejected by men, and man of sorrow from grief. No, it's not.
What? I just Googled it quick. Oh, verse 5?
Yes. So surely he's borne our griefs, carried our sorrows. We esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the chastisement for us peace, and with his wounds we are healed. Dun, dun, dun. 53, 5. You said 5, yes.
Yeah.
All
right, and while you're looking that up, I'm just gonna read through a couple of different things here. Punkwaddle says Enoch walked with God, a simple statement yet quite profound. Roddy is saying, I get it. I get tired of people who haven't ever suffered anything like a chronic disease tell me I need to be patient and content in the situation I find myself. It's annoying. Just remember, Will, God works all things for the good of those who follow him according to his purposes. Right?
Yeah, but I would qualify that verse too.
I know you. That's what it's.
No, it's just because I just finished reading the book about you, Into the Heart of Romans by N.T. Wright.
Yeah.
And he has I really like his interpretation of that. God works all things with those who walk with him. All things, I don't think means everything in my life. It means God's plan of the redemption of the world. He's going to work it together as I work with him. And I'm not saying my life's gonna suck and be horrible until I die. Oh, it could be. But I don't read that verse so personally,
Mm-hmm.
only about me. I read that God will work all things together for good for those who work with Him, who
Mm-hmm.
walk with Him.
Mm-hmm.
And the good is His plan of the redemption of the world,
Mm-hmm.
which includes our own redemption.
For
But
sure.
it doesn't mean in this life sometimes.
It's personal, but it's corporate.
Yeah. It means am I gonna run one day? Yes. In this body right now, maybe not. But I'll get a new one
Mm-hmm.
and that will work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that healed word in the context of the fact that I think it's a more of a wholeness. Like we are okay, acquainted with grief, who's pierced for transgression, crushed for iniquities. So pierced for our sins, iniquities, sins, chastisement, peace, sins and peace. So you have sin, peace, and then heal. So I think the healing might be encompassing the fact that it's including the sins and the peace we receive. I see it as a wholeness. But even in that, again, going back to what Paul will say in Romans chapter 8, yes, we will be glorified with Christ if we identify with Him in His sufferings.
Mm-hmm.
The way Christ is going to redeem this world is the way God did it through Christ. It's through suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Not in any way am I saying everyone needs to suffer, so get in line. No. God can use anyone. I'm a firm believer. I remember Dave Demchuk told me, whatever you give God, He will use. 100%. I'm all for that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think one theme which has never been written about and talked about extensively is that to be glorified, and then and how I read glory in Romans 8 is it's this idea of, so I think it was Irenaeus who said the glory of God is a human being fully alive,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is actually a very good statement. God's glory is seen when His humans bear His image and live in this world the way that we are intended to, taking care of it, taking care of one another. That's His glory. So in this world, God's glory is seen, I think, even in the midst of those who are suffering, to be able to still carry on that Imago Dei kind of mission in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And even those who suffer, and this is hard for people because it's hard for me, you don't like asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where you actually end up really experiencing what the power of the church is.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember the first accident, I had people at the church I went to, they would pick me up 5 a.m., put my wheelchair in the car, drive me to school. Part of me is still ashamed that had to happen, but that's God's people being God's people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's humbling when you need to be in the end to receive that. But when you get to do that, that's awesome. So, but it is humbling to even receive that. So even having certain disabilities does teach you a humility, because even now, if I'm at church and someone offers to carry my coffee, I'm like, no, I can do it. No, Will, you can't. Stop being like, why do you do this? But that's humans. No, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I read this one article. I don't remember where it was, but talked about how in North America they define what a human is, as someone who's independent and autonomous, can make your own choices, and can kind of do your own work. And the author said, it's too bad they didn't define what a human was by who could be the most loving. Because in that case, kids with autism would be more human than all of you CEO. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
That drive to be independent is even in me.
Mm-hmm.
No, I can carry my own coffee. Thanks. I'm good to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't need to be so rude about it, but that's still in us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, yeah.
What lexicon were you using, or were you just looking at the Hebrew?
Dun, 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 dun. I went to a couple. I was looking at Halot, and it didn't really give me anything I liked. Some of my computer is very long. I'm not. Actually, I know what I'm
No,
gonna
that's
look
fine.
at. I'm gonna look at. I gotta find it here. No, that's what I want. Really? Oh, come on. I don't want to go get up and get a book. Yeah, it's saying it's a name. No, it's not a name, you idiot.
So the way that I've always read that verse is it's relational, right? Because it's talking about sin and all that kind of stuff, and the whole thing is the restoration of the relationship. Like that's the whole thrust of that whole portion is the restoration of man with God. And so
I remember when I teach Isaiah, what I emphasize in that chapter is that God was not God, Christ, who is God, was given up as a sin offering.
yeah.
Um, Now sin offerings in I think it's Leviticus 6, Deuteronomy 6. Um, they were often you give a sin offering for many reasons. One of the reasons you give a sin offering is because of a vow you've made that has been broken. So, in one sense, now this is not the only sense because it just can't be. In one sense, I think in Isaiah 48, it begins with God saying to Israel, "You're Israel in name only.
Mhm.
Yeah, you call yourself my people. Clearly, you act nothing like me."
Mhm.
So, in one sense, Christ is given up as the offering for that high handed swearing Israel made to be God's people, which they have so not been. But it does go beyond that because it's the offering that is what the new covenant is about. It's not just about them, but no, I would definitely read it as a more like you said an encompassing healing, not only physical, but I would say including physical.
Um, Roddy says I always took it as Isaiah 53 and 2 Peter 2:24 as the healed icon atonement model. I could be wrong.
Cool. Honestly, honestly, I'm not a systematic guy, so all these atonement models, I don't care. They are valuable, and I'm glad you guys know them. I'm not the guy to talk to about them. I'm not.
No, that's fair. And that's the thing. And that's the thing. You just care about the what it says and how
I
it's.
mean, the farther you get in school, I find the more focused you get, and the less time you have for everything else.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
and since I've been out of school, I just read what I want to read.
No, that's fair. Wouldn't
But
sin off.
since I've been out of school, I find myself reading a lot more books on spiritual formation and stuff for the church, which you was not me 4 or 5 years ago. It was not.
No.
It was all a bunch of like idiots. Learn Hebrew, you morons. But now I'm like, hey, how how can we get people to be formed in the ways of Christ to live this out? And I've gotten away. I still read books like if NT writes something, I'm gonna buy it and read it. That's how I go. But I read a lot more books by a guy like Eugene Peterson, who is not a theologian. I mean, he is, but not on the same par as maybe others would. He's
Mhm.
also dead too. So, um, but I still like his approach to, um, like I did a course with him on Ephesians, and you have courses that go verse by verse. His was not.
Mhm.
I'm like, you didn't even talk about Ephesians, but I learned so much.
Mhm.
He's kind of one of those guys which I really like.
Mhm.
No, keep going with your atonement theories. That's great. I'm not the guy to
No, that's fair.
correct you, but yeah.
Um, wouldn't sin offering be better translated as peace offering, according to Dr. Heiser?
Uh, I would say according to Rick Watts, no, but I've never read Dr. Heiser. You probably never read Rick Watts, so I don't know what to tell you there. I mean, I'll let those two argue it out. Except
There-
again, Heiser, God rest his soul, I think he's dead.
yeah, he is. Yeah,
So
I think he died 2 years
I
ago
mean,
now.
you're gonna find 4 or 5 different guys who are willing to die on a stake over how they interpret a word.
Yeah,
They come and spend 5 years writing a book about it, which no one reads. So they're gonna do what they can to defend it.
yeah,
Again, a lot of my work on Isaiah is definitely backed by a guy named Rick Watts who taught at Regent College. I have his dissertation. Um, I'm not saying he's right and likely will be proven wrong in years coming, but I even think he makes some big leaps in some spots. So, but I love the guy. But yeah, I don't know.
that's fair. That's fair. All right. So if you guys have any questions for Will, about this, how much time you got, Will? You have tons of energy, or
I'm good. I'm
you
good.
fading? Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Chat most likely never went to seminary, is I'm guessing what that's meant to say, which that's fair. Like, I don't do this for seminary people. My goal is to make this as practical as possible. Like, there's guys like Warren and Leighton and Provisions Perspective and all those guys. Like, they get into the nitty gritty, and I'm not a philosophy guy. I'm not a
No, yeah, and again, 5 years ago, I would want to speak to them, and I'm not being rude. I don't
no.
care anymore. I don't because you know what? They're gonna find things to debate about till the cows come home. That's fine. They're needed for certain areas. I'm more interested in the everyday Christian because you know what? I spent 12 years in seminary. I tell you this, it didn't help
Yeah.
because I'm still struggling with life questions. I don't have all the answers. And I, yes, God cares about education. I'm always an education first guy, but sometimes it just gets in the way.
Mhm.
Sometimes. And I'm glad people pursue it. I will always encourage people to get your master's, to get whatever. I think it's a good way of really realizing maybe I don't need to hang on to that conviction anymore. Maybe I actually it's a good way to figure things out. But I don't cling to it as hard as I once did.
Mhm.
I still think truth is important, and certain debates have to be had, 100%. But I'm not here for the theologian debate. I'm just not.
That's
If
fine.
you want, I'll go to my office and we can get the books. But I just don't want it.
Yeah, but that you're along for the conversation and for the ride. You
Yeah,
don't care about taking a position.
no.
So then Sparky's asking, Will, did suffering cause you to focus more on church relations than church argumentation?
I would say yes, but pri- firstly indirectly. So indirectly because I was doing so the two accidents I was in seminary, and I will say that seminary was better than any counselor I could have seen. Not because they gave me the right answers, because there were people at seminary who would just sit with me,
Hmm.
who would not try to tell me why, but would allow me to complain, allow me to vent. And yes, we had deep conversations, 100%, and I loved that, and they prayed for me, but they were just there for me. The best part of seminary during my accident was the cafeteria. Best part of it. Best part of it. I did take I took the same class twice on the Theology of Suffering with a guy named Phil Zilla. Again, that's a book I'd recommend to everyone. It's called The Roots of Sorrow.
Hmm.
It's an awesome, awesome book. Um, and then after seminary, I got involved in the church more. And so indirectly, the accidents led me to be involved in the church more. And for the past, I'd say, 8 years, I'm definitely more concerned with with people in the church. Um, Again, I still run life groups where we like I did a life group on the Psalms,
Mhm.
a life group on the parables of Jesus, where we begin with what is a parable,
Yeah.
what's the Old Testament background of this, and then we get into breaking down each parable. So I do those, but I love it when people who don't have a lot of education, come to those.
Mhm.
And walk away with, okay, I really like this. That's what I love.
Mhm.
I'm not in it for debates. I'm in it to seeing on people's faces the moment that light clicks.
Yeah.
I'm like, that, okay, you're getting this now. That's good.
Mhm.
And I'm learning to be a bit more charitable with people who have different views. Not widely different, but just different. I mean, that's fine. I'm not gonna get in a fight over this. As long as we can kind of pray together at the end. We're praying to the same God. I'll let Him deal with you, or deal with me. I mean, that's His job. So I think indirectly suffering has, and I think for myself, it's definitely made me hang on to stuff a bit looser. But trust me, you see me with my family, I'm willing to throw down because they believe some wacky stuff. So
Um,
family dinners, I'll throw down, but not with people who I'm just trying to get to know.
that's fair. Sparky asked this way earlier.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the Book of Job?
Um, I love the Book of Job. I have a lot of books on the Book of Job. I did a couple courses on the Book of Job. I think this speech is actually, again, a book recommendation if anyone likes to read. A book called Abraham's Silence by Richard Middleton. He tackles the Book of Job a little bit in the middle section. It's called Abraham's Silence, and he one position he gives, which I'm sympathetic to, is the final two speeches, which somehow we intuitively read as God just throwing down with Job. Like, look at you, ignorant, blah, blah. And he says the first speech, I think, is clearly in reference to Job cursing creation in chapter, I think it's 3. Job begins by cursing creation and God, and then the first speech is like, look at Job, you weren't there. You don't know enough to really curse my creation. But God gives him a chance to respond after the first speech, and Job doesn't. He says a small phrase, but doesn't actually respond. So God keeps talking. So the way Milton proposed it, which I kind of like, he's like, God wanted discussion. God wanted Job to respond. Job didn't, so God kept talking. So his two speeches, Job finally responds, and in his last final response is a response to both speeches. The first one being, yeah, I didn't know enough to I'm really paraphrasing here. He's like, yeah, I didn't really know enough to speak up. I'm sorry. But the whole I repent in dust and ashes thing, and this is a big debate many have. He translates it, I'm comforted in dust and ashes. Meaning I'm actually comforted being a human, knowing you are in control way more than I even understand. And even in that second speech, God compares Job to Behemoth and Leviathan. He compares them to him. Look at these wild creatures. You're kind of like them. And what I like about Job is Job has the audacity, I guess was one word you might say, the goal, the
Mhm.
chutzpah, to have it out with God. He doesn't curse God. He just wants an honest dialogue.
Mhm.
And I think people are even afraid to have that with God.
Mhm.
I can't be honest. You are the high and mighty one, and that's it. I must only use very nice verbs. And Job is not like that. He does not curse God,
No.
but Job wants an honest dialogue. And I don't read those speeches as God throwing down. God is asserting himself as God, but I see it as more of a caring approach.
Hmm.
In fact, I wrote a paper, I can't remember his name, he's a Jewish scholar, who he categorizes speeches more as a teaching moment than of fiercely correcting this idiot.
Mhm.
But again, how you read those sentences, you're going to read them, we're each going to read them very differently. and a lot of it's going to come based on how we view God ourselves. Read that view into how you read those speeches.
Well, yeah, because I mean, even today, when we were just reading the Bible with the kids tonight, we were reading about how the Israelites they're freaking out at Moses when Pharaoh he's increasing, because we're in the book of Exodus with the kids now. So we finished Genesis, now we're within Exodus. So, and so I asked my older daughter, I said, can we have really hard conversations with God? And she like very affirmatively like, yeah, we can. I was like, can you get really mad at God? And she was like she wasn't sure how to answer, right? She like starts shifting. She's like, no, we can't. We cannot be mad. And I was like, no, you can. I said, the Bible is very clear of people that they get very mad at God and they talk very honestly with him. And then my wife, she chimes in. She's like, but we have to still be honoring. You can be very honest, but you still have to be honoring towards God. And I'm like, and I get it. And I don't disagree with her in principle. But at the same time, if there's those days where you just have to have it out with someone and you need to scream at God and just let him have it, he is big enough to take that. And that's that's one of the most beautiful things, right? Is he's I mean, he took our sin upon himself. He can take a couple mean words from us.
I just saw Roddy K's comment. Everyone also seems to skip over the fact Job was restored. Job, yes. Does that restoration take away from the suffering he experienced? No. Yeah, he got kids back. Does he no longer miss his previous kids? No. I am sure he still does. So yes, he did get blessed in the end, 100%, not denying that. And no, he's not told exactly why this happened. But it doesn't take away from the fact he still is going to live with a loss the rest of his life that he doesn't know why to. So again, Job is such an interesting book, and you could have 5 different perspectives, and I'd probably say, yeah, you make a good point, you could be right, and then yeah, you could be right too. It's like that. It's a book that causes much debate, that gets more people talking about it. One of the things I love about it is, again, I think it's really hard on Job's friends, which I think is good. Like, the best thing the friends did was showed up and didn't say anything, and then they opened their mouths, and that was the biggest problem. And that is the problem people have, is we always want the answer as to why, and I just don't think that's always possible. I don't. So I know people who still, don't like the book Job and are not comforted by it. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. If you're reading this book because you want the quick fixed answer, you're not going to like it.
Nope.
Not at all. And you can even read the book of Job and say, God's just a divine bully. Read that book too. I get it. I'm with you. But again, I think reading Job is great, but you can't divorce it from the story the Bible tells, which also involves the life of Christ and how God saves. That was my focus at school was biblical theology, trying to put the whole thing together.
Well, the only thing I would kind of add to that is you're saying is it models the whole pattern of Scripture, right? Because Job got, I mean, obviously there was loss, but he got everything back. Ultimately, one day there's going to be things that we've lost along the way, but we're going to stand before Christ, and everything will be better, and we will be restored what was taken. So, who do you open up to about one's sorrows?
One's or mine's?
You can go both. So go generic first, and then go to your experience.
Well, it's got to be something you trust. I mean, that has to be it. It's the one I've been the most open with is my friend Justin.
Mhm.
who I've known since school, and that's someone I'll trust with my life.
Mhm.
It's not always relatives, actually. Like my relatives, they handle this stuff the worst. Like even in my message, I said my mom never don't ever say don't tell people in church you want to punch Jesus in the face. I'm like, well, then I'm lying if I don't. Like my relatives are the again. My mom, very lovely woman, very Pentecostal. The only thing she cares about is revelation. So I'm like, we have nothing to talk about. Um, but but for her, she loves me. I'm her son, but she doesn't have the capacity to talk me through this. You need to find someone who's a good listener and who won't be judgmental and won't try to fix your problem. I think I just described all guys there, but whatever. Um, no, I mean for me, because like I'm not married. It's my friend Justin, and again, because we're such close friends, when he does give me constructive criticism, I need to take it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you know me more than anyone. I remember he's in BC and he'll come down for a week every year, and then he'll notice things in my like everyday behavior. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. I do that.
Mhm.
So he clearly knows me enough to see how I've changed since school in terms of how I treat people and talk about God and whatnot, but also on just basic things I do.
Mhm.
Um, and this isn't a need, but I think you also need someone who you trust enough to make fun of you in a good way. Because
Am I
sometimes
on that line or do I cross it?
you're Justin's on it. You're on it too. Because when they do that, that's when you know they actually do care. They
Yeah.
actually do. I
Yeah.
mean, you can be made fun of and you're just like a horrible person. But if it's like a friend, you know they're just. And sometimes when you're venting, um, when they make fun of you, it kind of makes you realize, Will, like this is not a big deal. Calm down. You're not the only. Like, come on, buddy. You know, and you need that. Sometimes our own problems can become the biggest thing in the world, and if this doesn't get fixed, the end of the world is happening. And getting that jolt of suck it up, buttercup. Just okay, maybe I need to just kind of get over this.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, we have two good points here, and they're not in conflict. I don't think there's any debate there. But sometimes God's the only one to open up to, which I would say that's fair. Like there's sometimes there's things that you can only say to God, but the other side is true too. That sometimes by not opening up to others, you do miss God speaking to you through them. It's
Yep.
it's the body of Christ, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So,
Again, I read this great book by a guy named Chad Berg.
but it's also true, Sparky. Most people do suck.
That's also true too. I read this great book by Chad Berg, who I discovered like in December, and I bought like 6 of his books. I love the guy. Again, I love the guy because the one book I read, he explained how he became a seminary professor, a pastor, had all the accolades, and then got divorced. And I'm like, I want to know your story. He's restored now in a wonderful writing and speaking career. But he said the most simple thing, but I'm like, why have I never understood this? And he's like, God transforms you. So the theological term, the sanctification, the making us holy or the holifying us comes through other people.
Mhm.
We're not sanctified by sitting in a room by ourselves all day praying.
Mhm.
Not that that's wrong, but going to church, learning to love people you don't like, learning to take advice from them, and as Amber said, learning to see how God speaks through them. That's how God makes you holy. That's how He sanctifies you. It's
Mhm.
never a solo effort,
Mhm.
which made me really say, "Oh, now I get why accountability is vital
Mhm.
in all areas, whether
Mhm.
it's eating, sexual, just wanting to kick a bad habit, whatever." That's how God makes you holy.
Mhm.
Not saying it won't get annoying at times, probably will, but you need other people. Because if you just do it on your own, you're just gonna realize I can't do this. and then get depressed and stop trying.
Exactly. Exactly. Sure, this is just funny. I told Floral, which is me, how lame he was on the stream. The next stream, I was a mod. What the heck? Yeah, it's because
Okay, I'm gonna show my age here. What's a mod?
uh dude, you're only a year older than me.
Yeah, but you're young and
Just
hip.
a
I'm
moderator. A moderator.
and what does that mean?
He's a wrench, so he can um stop people from talking. He can remove comments and post
So
links and all that kind of stuff.
didn't you kind of promote him then from
From just being a normal chat person.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So he got an upgrade, but he made fun of me. And so that, and then the next stream he got a promotion. And so
Well,
he,
that's a good thing.
yeah, no.
Okay.
He's just trying to be funny.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, these things are called jokes, Will.
No, I know. I'm not good at the reading of the joke.
What happened? You get in a couple of car accidents?
Yes, I did.
Where are we here? The difference between having a few people worth listening to and ignoring most of what people say on social media is as worthwhile criticism.
Yeah, that's again all this stuff we're gonna navigate on our own. But you're right. I'm not saying listen to everyone. In fact, I would never vent on Facebook and take anything anyone says seriously. I'm just not going to. Is
Yeah.
this a joke too that I didn't get? Is that why you're laughing?
No, I'm just thinking of all the stupid things that happen online that
Yeah.
like
And that's the world that we live in. Again, I'm reading this other book by a guy named it's David Haidt, but it's not Hate, it's Haidt. So Haidt or whatever.
yeah,
It's called the anxious generation, and about how the iPhone and social media has just wreaked havoc on kids' ability to just be in the world.
yeah.
And one of them is taking criticism from online posts and comments, and it's not worth it.
Yeah.
I just
Nope.
post memes on Facebook or stupid comments. That's it.
Mm-hmm. So
I never respond actually, which probably ticks people off because some of them have asked like good questions. I'm like, no, I'm not responding.
I've been getting better at not responding.
I think I've actually ignored some of your questions the odd time.
You've what?
I've ignored even stuff maybe you've said.
Oh yeah, no,
you asked me a question. Like,
yeah, no. I'll send you a message on Facebook on Messenger, and you just don't answer me. And it drives me nuts.
Again, as you know, I prefer to talk when I come into the office.
I do know that, and then I'll just ask the same question, be like, "So you suck. You never answered my question." So we'll take 3 minutes or so, or however long you feel. How the heck do we live all this out, right? Because we've talked very practically. You've talked about your life, right? You've talked about everything or not everything, but a lot of the different kinds of things you've gone through. And obviously, kind of like Job, when we go to that book, we want the quick answers, right? What would be the summary of your thoughts?
Oh man, well, I don't have a quick answer for you. I think living this out is that it is a combination of being bold, having chutzpah. The thing I struggle with, and this is a struggle, so this I'm not giving you advice, is I struggle many times with being able to cling to hope. Sometimes it is hard to pray to God. You can read a psalm, you can read a scripture verse that is hopeful, and sometimes I'm like, God, I don't have the faith to feel this right now. I don't. And like that's where I am now. Me and Steve talked past couple weeks just about stuff going on at church, and I'm very. It's just affecting my mood, my attitude, and one thing I'm trying to learn to do is, again, this is me being a historical pessimist,
Mhm.
is trying to borrow stuff from the optimists, and even when I don't feel it, raise my hands during the music time. And like I went to a youth event called Overflow because I volunteer with the youth. So the academic side of me mocks and judges this thing up and down a hill. What's with the smoke machine, you idiot? Stop jumping on stage. Like, the song's so stupid. That's my internal monologue. But I got to a point where I'm like, the song, which I didn't like, but it had this one verse where I was like, "You are able." And I stood there amongst like thousands of kids and I had to raise my hands. I'm like, God, I don't want to do this, but this is an act of me kind of confessing that, yeah, I need to, I, I need to give you this. I need to trust you. And for me, it's like, I'm not a hand raiser. I'm not. Um, I grew up in a Pentecostal church where we wore tennis shoes to get better grip on the wall when you ran the wall. Like, it was crazy. Like, and as a young kid, my hands were flying around. School took that out of me, and I'm actually trying to find it, and that's the biggest struggle. Because I do think Paul says in dun, 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 I think it's Colossians. We were to live. No, I'm thinking Colossians, quoting another verse, talking about singing songs, hymns, praises, as like a community, and something about singing and confessing that, whether you're just talking the words or singing them to a beat, it engages, I think, part of the inner me that is more bent on the depressive side, and I need to learn to do that more, because if I'm uh, too on my own, too in my head, sometimes my head is just, it's not going to work.
Mhm.
Um, so how do you live this out practically? Find good friends who will let you vent, but will still pray with you then,
Mhm.
and who, when you have no hope, they will hope for you.
Mhm.
Um, Also, who aren't afraid to give you a good kick in the ass sometimes. Sometimes, not all the time, but when you really need it.
Mhm.
But no, the ones who will let you express your hopelessness, but hope for you until you find your hope.
Mhm.
Um, those, I think, are the true friends you need. Yeah, the one guy, Bandaloo one, I thought this is one of my favorite verses when he says, I believe, help my unbelief.
Mhm.
God, I trust you, but my prayers help me in all the areas I don't trust you. And you know there are a lot of them. And that prayer, which you're simultaneously confessing doubt, you're also asking for help, though. So you are expressing trust.
Mhm.
Um, so it's a prayer admitting doubt, grounded in trust, which is weird, but that's okay. Life is weird. Um, uh, yeah. I don't even know if I answered that, but I said some stuff. So we'll
You
go.
did say things. No, it was good. It was good. Um, so this will be the last question we take. What would be your advice for people
Oh,
that have
man.
trouble understanding there can be positive in the horribleness of suffering?
I'm there right now. Um, well, I would first, you've got to admit that to God. Again, if you're a Christian, you need to come with Him and say, "This, I don't see." So often, there's that verse in Psalms, "You will see His goodness in the land of the living." How many times I've said, "I'm not seeing it."
Mhm.
There's a verse, I think it's Psalms or Proverbs, says, "Hope deferred makes the heart sick." Okay, God, my heart's sick because you deferred hope way too long. It begins by honestly admitting that to Him, um, or even to a friend if you're not a Christian. But if you are, first admitting it to God and finding someone to admit it to who can pray with you and pray for you on their own time as well.
Mhm.
And continually just trying to check in on you. But I'm there. I mean, it's funny. So many people, well, a number of people talk about, oh well, you did such a good job speaking. I'm like, if you guys think this is fun, I mean, I'm like, you need. I'm talking to a bunch of guys who are like in their late 20s, and they're good friends of mine. We hang out, and I said, you guys don't realize what I did. I said I stood up, and in the first 2 minutes, I said my body is decaying. I said, you know what went through my mind? There was any shot of meeting a girl ever. I'm like, you think it's great? That's horrifying to me. That's a reality that, trust me, God knows. And that's a reality I have a hard time hoping for.
Mhm.
Um, so I would say first, like I said, like 10 times already, admit it to God. Um, and if you know the character of God, God's not like, yeah, whatever. God takes that honest, gut wrenching, fearful confession seriously.
Mhm.
And I think he will move and act to respond to that confession. And it may be that thing Amber said, through a word someone else says to you at the church, or a friend,
Mhm.
or a billboard. Who knows? I have no idea. But admit it to him, and because we serve a God who is gracious, compassionate, full of steadfast love, he will respond. He takes your cries seriously.
Mhm.
He does not respond like a microwave. It's not going to be 2 days and then your answer. It might take a while. He's more of a crock pot kind of God, I think. Um, he takes longer. He kind of lets us simmer in it a bit, but he will respond. Um, and it is, know that in asking that question, you're actually being allowed to understand a little bit of what Jesus felt in the garden.
Mhm.
And many people, no matter how many letters are behind their names, maybe they won't get that chance to experience God like that.
Microwave died yesterday. Awesome one
I'm
coming in
wondering,
with the perfect addition to the illustration.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. With that being said, I'm gonna read this passage in Romans, which you could probably assume you know where I'm gonna go there, because it highlights what you had mentioned before, and Paul, the what do you call it, the cruciform apostle.
Yes, again, this is a good book here by Michael Gorman called Cruciformity, Paul's Narrative Theology, Narrative Spirituality of the Cross. Very good book.
Therefore, since we have been justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. Through him, we have also obtained access by faith into this grace in which we stand, and we rejoice in hope of the glory of God. Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. And so,
And thanks to Amber M for always finding these verses and putting them in the comments. I'm
yeah,
sure.
no, she's the law nerd, or like the law nerd. She's the law clerk for Bible nerds.
I was gonna say, don't call your viewers nerds, Steve.
No, she's a nerd. She's totally a nerd, but she's like one of the most amazing nerds. Because remember how I told you about the talking about donkeys in Exodus 13:13,
Yes.
right? So she's the one that found like 36 pages of
Oh yeah.
um, yeah. So there's no contribution thing on this one because we are not monetized on this channel yet. Um,
No, I
but
don't want. I don't want any.
okay, so Will doesn't want money.
No.
Um, if people want to give money, because
Give it
there's
to church.
hmm?
People give money, give it to the church.
Or you could send it to me, and then I'll just give it to him, and I'll just put it in his glove box in his car, so he'll or something, and he'll be like, "Oh, where did this come from?" When his car breaks down and something happens to it. Amber admits she's a nerd.
Well, that's fair enough.
Paul's a nerd. All right. So anyway, so that all being said, Will, I really do appreciate your time, and you are a good friend, and I love you deeply with all my heart. Um, but no, we've known each other for many
Holy
years.
smokes, it's 10:30.
It is, yeah, no, that's what I'm
Oh,
saying.
wow.
We got to wrap this thing up. I'm getting
Yeah.
tired. But you've done a great job, and when can we look forward to you establishing your YouTube channel so you can start talking theology and
Yeah, I have
people?
no idea.
Yeah, well, we'll work on it. We're gonna work on it. We're once you're on here a little bit more regular, you're gonna be like, oh, I like this. I like teaching people, and
I still don't like this because I talk and I'm seeing my face talk, and it's just disturbing.
you get over it. It's just
I
it's fine. It's fine.
remember they had to do when I spoke at New Hope, they always take a picture, put it on their website, and they took a picture. The person who takes pictures is very good, but the picture that they put on the website, I'm like, I have a bulging vein. That's all I saw. I'm like, oh my gosh, why
Oh,
that picture?
I mean, there was the thumbnail that I had from a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I didn't like that. That's before I had braces. I hate that picture.
The one that I had.
Yeah, again, see, I'm still so vain. Like I shouldn't care about this stuff, but I do. All I see is a crooked teeth person. I mean, ew, no.
Oh, dude, it's okay.
I know.
It's okay. You're gonna die anyway.
Probably soon. So I don't know.
All right, cool. Thank you, everybody. We're just going to wrap it up there. I'll just quickly say a word of prayer, and we'll be finished. Lord, I thank you for Will. I thank you for his heart. I thank you for his story. I thank you for the value that he adds to the kingdom. I pray that you would do amazing things in, through, and around him. That Father, you would sustain him. That Lord, he knows the truth, and he knows the reality of what your word says. But sometimes what the heart knows and what the mind knows may feel like two separate things. I ask that, Lord, you just help him to persevere as we read. And Lord, for anyone else that's watching or listening or in the future listens to this, that Lord, they would be able to persevere as well. And that Lord, sometimes our lives we're not suffering now, but having this insight now, it will be brought to remembrance by the power of the Holy Spirit when we need it. And maybe it's helping someone else go through it. So may this be a resource for the kingdom. May this be a tool for your glory, and that lives will be changed and transformed as a result of not only Will's faithfulness and his testimony, but as the power in his testimony. But that Jesus, you would also do an amazing thing. We thank you again for this opportunity. Thank you for this platform and the ability to be here. Bless everyone that's in the chat, and that God, you would do incredible things in, through, and around them as well. In your wonderful and mighty name, amen.
Amen.
All right. I'm going to end stream. So there's going to be that few second delay where we don't know what this is going to end. So feel free to put your weird face on. And